Her scalp was nearly detached, and all the blood had been drained from her body. A truly haunting death. That is exactly what happened in May 2016, in a luxury apartment in West Hollywood, where the famous model Iana Kassian was brutally murdered. The perpetrator was none other than her husband, Blake Leibel, a Canadian millionaire and comic book writer who had previously created horror stories about murder. But what shocked the police the most was that his method of killing mimicked the graphic novel he had written. Why would a wealthy, successful man turn into a cold-blooded killer? What drove him to murder his own fiancée in such a brutal way? If you love thrilling, horrifying stories, hit like and subscribe to never miss another true crime case. Our main character, Iana Kassian, born on January 27, 1986, in Kyiv, Ukraine. With sharp facial features, deep eyes, and flowing black hair, she embodied the beauty of Eastern European women. But she was not just beautiful, she was intelligent and determined. From a young age, her parents had placed great hopes on her. As she grew older, through relentless effort, she graduated in law and secured a stable job at the state tax agency. But beyond her profession, she had a greater passion: modeling. Ukraine has been home to many world-famous supermodels, and Iana was no exception. Despite fierce competition, she made a name for herself in the fashion industry. But that was not enough for her. Iana did not want to limit herself to her homeland. She wanted to go further. And her dream destination was America, a land of limitless opportunities. In 2014, at the age of 28, Iana Kassian officially left Ukraine to pursue her big dream. Upon arriving in Los Angeles, with years of experience on the runway, she quickly found work as a model. It was also there that she met Blake Leibel, a young millionaire, the son of a wealthy family, a former comic book writer, and an aspiring director. Over time, their relationship blossomed, and Blake expressed his feelings for her, eventually proposing. He was not only rich and talented, but also showered her with affection. Iana felt incredibly lucky, believing she had found her Prince Charming. On May 3, 2016, Iana gave birth to their first daughter, whom they named Diana. To help care for the baby, Iana's mother, Olga, flew from Ukraine to Los Angeles, renting an apartment nearby to assist the young couple. Everything seemed perfect, but an unexpected tragedy struck. On May 25, 2016, an overwhelming sense of unease took hold of Olga. For hours, she could not reach her daughter. No calls were answered, no messages replied to. This was not like Iana. Unable to sit still, Olga went with a friend to her daughter's apartment at 8500 Holloway Drive, West Hollywood. Upon arriving, she saw Iana's car still parked in the garage. She was home, so why wasn't she answering the phone? After knocking persistently with no response, Olga peered through the window and saw the silhouette of a man inside. It was Blake Leibel, but instead of opening the door, he quietly stepped onto the balcony, closed the window, and pretended not to hear. A highly suspicious act. Fear reached its peak. Unable to wait any longer, Olga immediately called the police. 2 officers from the Los Angeles Police Department arrived within minutes. They knocked several times, but there was no movement inside. Legal procedures prevented them from entering without permission. They attempted to contact the building management to obtain Blake's phone number. However, when they called, Blake did not pick up. Something was definitely off. "My beloved daughter, are you still alive? I came to your house, but no one answered. Please, answer me. I know he's keeping you in there. I've called the police." Additionally, neighbors reported that for 2 days, no one had been seen entering or leaving the apartment. The police immediately realized that Blake was hiding something inside. There was no more time to waste. The police contacted the building management for a spare key, hoping to enter without force. But when they tried to unlock the door, they found it had been bolted from the inside, leaving them no choice but to break in. Carefully, the officers stepped inside. They searched every corner, the living room, the kitchen, the balcony, but found no one. Only 2 bedrooms remained, but the doors were blocked by a large mattress. When the officers forcefully pushed the door open, the room was empty, but there were red stains splattered on the headboard. This was no ordinary missing person case. This was a crime scene. There was no doubt something horrific had happened inside this apartment. The police rushed to the master bedroom. That door was also locked from the inside. One officer immediately kicked it open, but was met with a barricade. Furniture had been piled up behind the door. Suddenly, from inside the room, a deep voice echoed, "What do you want?" It was Blake, barricading himself inside. The situation became extremely tense. If the police acted recklessly, he might do something even worse. The officers chose a softer approach, trying to negotiate with him to open the door, but Blake adamantly refused and insisted that his wife was not inside. At this point, a crucial decision was made. A negotiator had to step in. That person was none other than Blake's personal accountant, Green. After a tense negotiation, the door finally opened. Blake Leibel stepped out of the room, but the sight before them left everyone in shock. He was wearing only white underwear. His body was emaciated, his eyes empty, and his face covered in scratches and bruises. His arms bore deep claw marks. His left jaw and left arm had bite wounds, as if he had been in a violent struggle with someone. The police immediately restrained Blake. He did not resist, just stood there with a strange smile flashing across his face. Once the suspect was secured, the investigators entered the master bedroom. But the moment they stepped inside, one officer suddenly gasped in horror. The horrifying sight that stunned them was Eerie. She lay motionless on the bed, her body pale and lifeless. Her blood had been almost completely drained. Her scalp was detached, and one of her ears was completely missing. Forensics determined the cause of death: severe head trauma leading to massive blood loss. The victim's arteries and veins had been severed, and she had been dead for at least 10 hours. The police continued to examine the crime scene, and what they found only made the case even more gruesome. On the mattress, headboard, carpet, and curtains, despite attempts to clean up, traces of blood were still evident. In the bathtub, there were red stains and strands of hair. In the trash bin, police discovered a razor covered in blood and hair. Everything pointed to this being the murder scene. The victim had been dragged from the bedroom into the bathtub, where she was drained of blood. But the most horrifying discovery was yet to come. Outside the building, police found 11 trash bags in a public dumpster filled with blood-stained blankets and sheets. On a bed sheet, they found a fingerprint with a missing pinky. It matched Blake's fingerprint perfectly. In another trash bag, they found Iana's severed ear. Everything was clear now. The perpetrator of this brutal crime was Blake Leibel. Additionally, the bite marks on Blake's arm matched Iana's dental records. Under Iana's fingernails, forensic experts found fragments of Blake's skin, evidence that she had fought desperately until her last breath. Why did he murder his fiancée so viciously? Was this a crime of jealousy, or was there a more twisted motive behind it? Blake Leibel, whose full name was Blake Richard Leibel, was born in 1981 in Ontario, Canada. He was not an ordinary man. He was the son of one of Canada's wealthiest families. His father, Lorne Leibel, was a famous real estate mogul who owned one of Canada's most successful development companies. He was also a professional sailor, a former Olympian, and was inducted into the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame. His mother, Eleanor Leibel, was a founding member of a major global plastic manufacturing company. Born into unimaginable wealth, Blake had more money than he could ever spend. But that didn't mean his childhood was happy. The misery of the silver spoon child. When Blake was young, his parents had a major falling out and decided to separate. The family split. Blake lived with his mother, while his older brother, Cody Leibel, stayed with their father. This created a growing rift between Blake and his father, leading to long-term resentment. Blake grew up feeling emotionally deprived, yet surrounded by extreme wealth. He could have anything he wanted, except for true love and affection. In 2004, Blake graduated from university and moved to Los Angeles. Thanks to his talents, he became involved in major entertainment projects, such as producing the animated series Spaceballs, the animated series in 2008. In 2009, he tried his hand at directing a comedy film called Bald. In 2010, he published a graphic novel titled Syndrome, a chilling work featuring gruesome details of scientific experiment-style murders. Blake wasted no time in Hollywood. He gradually built his reputation as a director, screenwriter, and novelist. But alongside his career, his personal life was filled with dark secrets. In 2011, Blake Leibel and his girlfriend Amanda Braun received news that they were expecting a child, prompting them to officially marry after years of dating. The birth of their first child brought a glimmer of hope for their small family, but reality was far from the ideal picture people imagined. Blake was not an ideal husband. He struggled with the responsibilities of marriage, especially after having a child at home. Frequent arguments took place. The inevitable result, they decided to separate, but had not yet officially divorced. That same year, another major event occurred. Blake's mother, Eleanor Leibel, passed away from cancer. Blake believed he would inherit most of his mother's fortune. But when the final will was revealed, he was devastated. He received only a small portion, just a few million Canadian dollars. Meanwhile, his father and brother inherited the bulk of the estate. Blake could not accept this. He believed that his father had forged the will, conspiring to steal his inheritance. He confronted his father, demanding answers, but the matter was quickly shut down. There was no evidence that the will had been altered. From that moment on, he swore never to forgive his father. They became enemies. Sometime later, he met Iana Kassian, a model from Ukraine. Blake was immediately captivated by Iana, but there was something he hid from her. He was still married. He never told Iana that he had a wife and child. When she found out, he quickly excused himself, claiming that he was in the process of divorcing. This wasn't entirely a lie. The truth was that he did want to divorce Amanda, but not because of love for Iana. He was simply tired of his marriage. In July 2015, Amanda became pregnant with their second child. But that didn't change Blake's mind. He still decided to file for divorce. In August 2015, Iana also became pregnant. Everything was happening so fast. It was as if he didn't want to waste a single moment. Iana quickly moved into Blake's apartment in West Hollywood. She felt happy. Her boyfriend was a millionaire who adored her, bought her a Mercedes, gifted her a diamond ring, and even bought her a house. Furthermore, their love child was on the way. For Iana, this was the American dream coming true. She had everything she had ever wished for. In April 2016, Iana brought her mother, Olga, from Ukraine to Los Angeles to help take care of the baby. But then, the nightmare began. Just 2 weeks after giving birth, Iana unexpectedly called the police, accusing Blake of assaulting her. The police documented the case, but no one imagined that it would eventually lead to a gruesome murder. In reality, no one could believe that a millionaire like Blake would completely destroy his future with such a reckless act. Those who knew Blake insisted. He had no criminal record. He was born into a wealthy family, had a perfect life. Why would he do this? But all those assumptions were shattered when the police discovered Iana's body. His case quickly became a media sensation, dominating headlines everywhere. Yet, he continued to deny his guilt. At the police station, he repeatedly pleaded his innocence. "I didn't do anything. I am innocent. I didn't kill her." He even declared, "Science will prove my innocence." But how could he explain himself when all the evidence at the crime scene pointed directly at him? All the blood at the scene belonged to Iana. The bite marks, traces under her fingernails, and bruises on Blake's body all matched the forensic evidence of a struggle between the victim and the perpetrator. The police conducted an in-depth investigation, gathering information from various sources. In particular, messages between Iana and her mother before the incident revealed a darker side of Blake Leibel. A shocking truth: both Blake and his brother, Cody Leibel, were notorious gamblers. Cody was even a professional high-stakes gambler, placing bets worth millions of dollars. Blake was not only addicted to gambling, but also to marijuana and other stimulants. He frequently lost his temper with his ex-wife and girlfriends, only to later show remorse and beg for forgiveness. Especially after Iana became pregnant, their relationship became even more strained. Because of this, Iana asked her mother to come to Los Angeles to help take care of the baby. She wanted to save her relationship with Blake, but her plan failed miserably. Just a few days after their daughter Diana was born, Blake began to exhibit strange behavior. His mood deteriorated severely, and he became extremely irritable. He kept the curtains shut all day, sat in a dark apartment, and constantly smoked illicit substances. He showed no interest in his daughter. In fact, he despised the child, because she had taken all of Iana's attention away from him. Just a few days after Iana gave birth, unable to bear it any longer, Blake forced intimacy on her, but she firmly refused. Police also discovered that while Iana was pregnant, Blake had been involved with at least 3 other women. Iana's mother, Olga, quickly realized that Blake was a dangerous control freak. She urged her daughter to leave him, but Iana kept going back. Did she truly believe he could change? 2 days before she was murdered, Iana was out shopping with her mother at a mall when she received a text from Blake. She suddenly became anxious. Moments later, she hurried off and never returned. Prosecutors argued that Blake's motive for murder stemmed from his anger and jealousy toward his own daughter. The baby's birth had made him lose control over Iana, fueling his insane rage. But was this just a moment of blind fury, or a meticulously planned crime? The police quickly found the answer. Blake's graphic novel Syndrome had foretold the crime. Its content was eerily similar to what happened to Iana. The novel's cover featured a headless doll. The story began with the chilling question: if you enjoy hurting others, what would you do? And it ended with an ominous statement: we all become monsters. Shockingly, Blake's murder mirrored a scene from his book. The victim was scalped and left on a bed in a pool of blood. But this was no coincidence. Blake had planned his escape. He had cleaned up the crime scene, hidden $4,000 in cash and his passport in his pants. If it weren't for Olga's intervention, he might have fled to Canada. On June 26, 2018, after nearly 2 years of investigation, Blake Leibel's trial officially began. Blake appeared in court looking noticeably different. He had gained a significant amount of weight. He continued to deny his guilt, claiming innocence and even pretending to be mentally ill to delay the trial. But psychologists concluded that he was completely sane. The trial lasted 6 days, with 14 witnesses summoned. The prosecutor declared, Blake's crime was so heinous that words cannot describe it. He planned the murder based on his own novel. On June 26, 2018, the jury took only 3 hours to reach a verdict: guilty. Blake was sentenced to life in prison without parole. In the end, justice was served, but at a terrible cost. What do you think? How long had Blake planned this crime? In my opinion, his twisted thoughts had existed for years. He was simply waiting for the right moment to act. This video concludes here. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.